Hello, I'm Super Orange Cat here. I'm today with a bit of a Toonami news update. If you were watching Toonami last night, you'll notice that during the middle, sort of on a line, during the commercial break, there was a 5 or so minute long Rick and Morty short, which was very anime inspired, based on the old Japanese program Lone Wolf and Cub from the 1970s. And for what I can tell online, it had a pretty decent reception. However, I want to make this video to kind of make a bit of analysis with regards to the short and the block, and why my opinions on it aren't exactly as rosy as most other people's, honestly. First off, I did end up watching the short. I thought it was okay. Like, I don't consider myself necessarily a Rick and Morty fan, but I don't consider myself someone who dislikes the show either. I'm in this weird middle ground, I guess, and especially with a property like Rick and Morty that polarizes everyone, I kind of take pride in having this middling, neutral stance, especially when I do review Rick and Morty, which I have done so far for season 4, and will later this year when the last 5 episodes of season 4 do eventually air. And what I want to bring up is sometime after the block, after it aired, you had Jason DeMarco come out on Twitter, toot his own horn, talk about how he spent a whole year working on it, how Toonami had this as like this secret project working for a year for this 5 minute short. And I want to go a bit into that in a moment. But also, he mentions Maki Terashima Ferrada as the producer of it. And she is currently an employee. I think she is the head of IG Productions IG Productions USA. And if that name sounds familiar to you, it is because IG Productions is the company that currently owns the rights to Fooly Cooly and produced seasons 2 and 3 of it. And also, they are the company that is behind Uzumaki. So obviously, Adult Swim has quite a connection with this studio, with this distributor. So it's not surprising they worked on it. Apparently, this short was specifically produced by Studio Deem, according to Jason DeMarco at least. And it was directed, according to Terashima Farada, she said Kaichi Saito directed it. And I find this interesting because I think this is one of the quote unquote 4 things we didn't know about that Toonami was producing. Because, like I said, DeMarco not that long ago said, we're making 6 things right now for Toonami. 2 of those are obviously Uzumaki and Blade Runner. And I believe this was one of them. And honestly, if that's true, it really feels like a cop out. Like, we have this great thing for it. So ultimately, you produce this, spent a year. So this wasn't exactly cheap on this 5 minute Rick and Morty short that the only way you can really profit off of it is from like YouTube ads. That's the only way I could see them making, like, you can't stream this short. Or if so, people aren't going to stream it because it's already available on YouTube. I believe on Adult Swim's account, and it has like, as if I can tell, it's already got more than 1 million views on it. Because, like I said, it was generally well received. And honestly, if this is what Toonami is spending money on, if this is what Adult Swim is spending money on, that's not a good thing. Because it's just bad business sense to spend a year and the amount of money made on the short on something you're not really going to turn a profit on. And this is already based on the fact that Adult Swim recently has swung and missed a lot with regards to Toonami and producing stuff with the 2 Fully Cooley sequels, probably losing them quite a bit of money. I just don't see why this is productive in a way. And if this is supposed to be some type of like ad campaign for Rick and Morty, well, I guess it's necessary because Rick and Morty's ratings are actually starting to really crumble. And I think they're also counting on this overlap between Toonami and Rick and Morty, which is there. There's quite a few Toonami fans, also Rick and Morty fans, obviously. However, I think they overestimated the extent of that overlap. And my test case for this is the fact that in weeks in which Rick and Morty preceded Toonami to try to build that overlap, the ratings typically do not fare nearly as well as when it's preceded by like Family Guy or American Dad. I think they're like, oh, nerds like Rick and Morty, so nerds like Toonami, and they think it's like this amorphous blob. However, if anyone really understands, looks into which type of people like anime and just how diverse the anime fan base really is, not a bunch of like fat white nerds in their basement, you'll realize that there's quite a few people who like anime, and you can't just simply put them all in like this box, which I think Adult Swim tried to do and tried to really picture in, and it's something that I don't think will work long term. And again, at the same time, you have Rick and Morty, which lost. I did a video about this like a little while back. Rick and Morty lost half of its viewership in the course of 5 episodes throughout season 4. And that's impressive considering that season 3 already was a small step down from season 2 in ratings. And I'm really curious to see, likely in the fall, because they already announced that the rest of the season will air sometime in 2020. I'm guessing sometime in the fall, they're just going to throw up the last 5 episodes of Rick and Morty of this season. And again, I could go more into Rick and Morty and just all the bad business decisions, long-term bad decisions that Adult Swim has made on it. Most notably, its decision to renew it through 100 episodes, which means they've renewed it through like 5 more seasons already, which is absolutely unprecedented. There's no shows, at least in the US, that are remotely close to that type of renewal status. Especially considering that I think the Rick and Morty star is starting to fall, starting to falter. Signs of it were the whole weird Szechuan sauce thing, especially right then. That was probably the first cracks in it. And since then, it's gotten weaker and weaker, and it's not quite the draw it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And ultimately, and with Toonami, like Jason DeMarco admits, we spent a year on this, which again, it takes animators, it takes money to make these things. So you spent money on something that you know you're not going to make a profit on. So the only reason why you would make it is some type of PR move to get more people to watch your block. But like I established, I don't think that's going to bring more people to Toonami. I don't think people are like, hey, Rick did samurai stuff. That means we must watch anime. No one thinks like that, which I find just astounding. And ultimately, I watched the short. I thought it was okay. Like, I didn't hate it or love it in any way. It's one of those things, I feel like if I watch the source material, the Lone Wolf and Cub, which I haven't, I might appreciate it more. However, it just felt like standard Rick and Morty stuff without much of the actual Rick and Morty humor that actually makes it good from time to time. And honestly, I'd rather just watch the very bad episode of Sword Art Online I was watching. Oh yeah, and by the way, sometime next week, not this upcoming week, but the week after, I'm gonna do a retrospective video on the first half of War of the Underworld, and it's gonna be more of a rant. And this episode, oh my god, this episode was atrocious. And I'm gonna go into that in more detail. I'm gonna go into the first half of Underworld in more detail after episode 12 airs next Saturday. Stay tuned for that because that's gonna be a fun video, probably. But nonetheless, what do you guys think? Did you like this Rick and Morty short? More power to you if you did. Leave your opinions, leave your comments down below. If you like this content, if you want to hear me ramble about Toonami more, please like this video. Please subscribe and hit the notification button. I am Super Orange Cat, and that is all.